All right, we are live. The second ever emergency podcast in the history of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. I am Andrew Pasquini, Jason Aponte. Let's start off with the biggest news of the day. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. When you get the text from Andrew that says in all capital letters, emergency pod, you don't ask questions. You make the StreamYard and you sit down and you go for it.
Yeah,
and that's what happened.
And that's what it is. A lot happened today, and the reason we're doing this episode is because we already have one podcast coming out tomorrow, and that was going to be the only podcast we had this week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be such a long podcast because we're going to do both the review of the Cowboy game and the preview of the Cardinals game, that I was afraid that everything that happened today was going to be lost in just kind of the shuffle. So where do we want to start? Do we just want to start in like chronological order of the news? Because I feel like that's probably the safest place to start.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean that would be, you know why that works is because everything that happened today, I feel like was right perfectly placed after the other, right? Like each discussion. So go chronologically. I'm with it. And yes. No, sorry, Vince, we're not watching Zach Wilson right now.
We're not watching Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
From what I understand, he is cooking right now.
Apparently, he's good at football. But go ahead.
Breaking news. So the news started today with Nick Mullins' elbow needing surgery. That, from what I understand, from what I've read, it sounds like it's going to be Tommy John surgery, which unfortunate timing for him because into the season. And I mean, in terms of baseball, and that's where I know Tommy John surgery, I think that's where a lot of us know. It's a year-long injury. I don't know if that's the same in football as it is baseball, because baseball, they do throw significantly more with weirder arm motions, because I don't see quarterbacks throwing curveballs, all that fun stuff. To which I tweeted, I'm curious to see if CJ Beathard or Josh Johnson's going to get the start with how slow Shanahan has been going to Beathard with Mullins, and maybe necessarily a trust thing. It turns out, Jason, Josh Johnson is not an option on Sunday, as he has been added to the COVID list. So the 49ers were potentially entering Saturday, because their game against the Cardinals is on Saturday, with a quarterback room of CJ Beathard. That's it, with Jerick McKinnon and Kyle Juszczyk as the quasi backup quarterback.
Wait. Say that second name again.
Jerick McKinnon.
Oh my gosh. So chronologically, when you bring this up, right, we find out that, unfortunately, right, Nick Mullins is going to have surgery, and that's nothing to joke about, right? No. And I think the concern is that the Tommy John surgery, it lifts velocity from, for the most part. Footballs are harder to throw than baseballs, right? Like, yeah. I mean, as in terms of size, right? It really puts a guy who already had limited arm strength. I don't even want to say what I'm going to say, because he's probably devastated right now. So I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, but yes, for a little while there was, as much as I like to joke about it, like there was a situation where emergency quarterback. That's what the emergency pod should have been around.
Yes.
Was the initial thought that Jerick McKinnon from the Wildcat could have been a thing.
Could have been the offense, not just Wildcat. If Jerick McKinnon was quarterback, it would go from Wildcat to shotgun formation.
Right.
So there was that. So we had about a 10-minute span of, well, the quarterback is Beathard. That's all the Niners have entering Saturday. Then the news came across that Garoppolo's 21-day practice window opened. So maybe he's the backup, maybe he's not. Then we had the other news of Kittle is probably going to play on Saturday, which is a conversation we're going to have tomorrow.
Okay.
Raheem Mostert is done for the season, high ankle sprain, which we love that word on this podcast. And then the big news to round out the quarterback room, the 49ers have signed Josh Rosen off of the Buccaneers practice squad. And since the NFL changed the rules a couple days ago, because of the Bronco game in which they had no quarterbacks, that if you have no quarterback room because of COVID, you are allowed to sign a quarterback off of another team's practice squad and he can be active that week. So Josh Rosen is likely, extremely likely your backup quarterback unless he can figure out a whole playbook and offensive system in 3 days. Josh Rosen, I guess the big sentence here and why we're doing the podcast is Josh Rosen's a 49er, whether or not he is the starter on Saturday, which he probably isn't, or if he's the starter on week 17 against Seattle. Josh Rosen's your starting is it quarterback on the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah. I've been on record on this podcast, and it was more, and I'm not going to act like I was on it in the off season because I wasn't. I'm gonna tell you exactly when I jumped on it. When you tell me that Josh Johnson is the person that you bring on to your practice squad, that's when I was said, okay, now where's Josh Rosen, right? It has to be better than this, right? Like, we know what Josh Johnson is. Josh Rosen has to be looked at. Again, no one's pitching him as a savior. And with 2 games left in this season, he probably won't play this week, but he definitely will be the backup. But week 17, I better not see CJ Beathard. I better see Josh Rosen, and let's get weird. At this point, what exactly does this team fear if it came to this? And again, you got to think about this. If you're able to boost his stock, and I think you joked about this, Andrew, but I'm dead serious. Boost his stock to somehow get some sort of trade value for him, something like that. You come on, that's a no-brainer.
My joke was, and my joke is obviously a joke. He has 2 good games, and you package him with the first round pick to trade up and get Zach Wilson. Obviously, that's not going to happen,
right?
And I see this as a low risk, high reward move in the sense of backup quarterbacks. Listen, the worst case scenario, Josh Rosen doesn't play quarterback for the 49ers, and they let him go at the end of the season, and it's like nothing happened.
Right.
The best case scenario is he plays. Well, I'll call it 1.5 good games because I think there's an outside shot he plays Saturday. I don't think he's starting, but if Beathard comes out slow, poorly, whatever it is, maybe Shanahan says, you know what, let's see what happens. Best case is he comes in and plays well enough to get a look at least in OTA's training camp next year, and maybe the Niners have a backup quarterback out of this. Like that's best case scenario, right? So the signing really has no barring on anything massive right now. But it could be an important move for the 2021 team because it gets Shanahan. And listen, if I'm a quarterback who is drafted in the first round,
I know what you're about to say. Say it.
Went from 2 teams that really weren't offensive minded and didn't really know how to work a young quarterback yet. And Brian Flores, give him time, he'll get there.
Say it.
Is there any other coach in the NFL you'd want to have your head coach if you're a quarterback who hasn't quite figured it out?
Nope.
Exactly. So this is really there's no bad in this move. Vince, it's not a 1 or 2 year deal. It's just a rest of the season deal, essentially.
Right. I believe, yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're not tied to him, which makes it even more of a slam dunk.
Yeah, there's no big money in this. They signed a guy off the practice squad. He's gonna be on the roster on Saturday. And as big of a revenge game podcast we are, it'd be very fitting if he got to play on Saturday against the Cardinals.
I wish.
Team that drafted him and ousted him really quick.
Don't tease me with a good time.
Yeah, nobody loves anything more than Jason loves his revenge game.
That's it.
I think Jason loves revenge games more than I love Jameis Winston, and that's a big love.
Right now, revenge games is neck and neck with Jarrett McKinnon out of the Wildcat. But yes, I agree. I think that's where I'm going with one of those as my brand. You already have your Jameis thing. I got to pick one of the 2. I'm sorry.
I already have my Jameis brand. So yeah, Josh Rosen in his career. Mm-hmm. He has played 20 games. He started 16. Mm-hmm. His career record is 3-13 as a starter, which I don't really worry about that because he played on a Cardinals team that was before Kyler Murray. He played on last year's Dolphins, which weren't quite what they are today. So ignore and throw out the wins and losses. Wins and losses is a stupid quarterback stat anyways.
Yes.
The stats you should focus on, his completion percentage is 55%, 54.8 if you want to be exact. Mm-hmm. Yards per game, 142.3, which not good. Not good. His quarterback rating is 63.5. He has 12 touchdowns and 19 interceptions.
That's not good.
Those aren't good numbers. His sack percentage is 10.8, which is relatively high.
Right.
But then again, that's not necessarily his fault.
Especially not in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. So like as I said, my thing is I think it's very unfair to grade Josh Rosen, and this isn't just a Josh Rosen's on the Niners be nice him thing, because I think it's the same thing with Sam Darnold, who was drafted in that same draft. Right? It's very unfair to grade Sam Darnold with Adam Gase as his head coach. I think it's very unfair to grade Josh Rosen off of his 2 years, because he just has never really been given a fair chance.
Yeah, and I think that's it. That's basically what we're saying. We're just wrapping our arms around the unknown, right? Like, here's what we know. Josh Rosen was drafted by Arizona. Vance Joseph, who was not offensive-minded, defensive coach, right? Mike McCoy was his offensive coordinator. Mike McCoy was heavily lambasted for the way he ran his offense. He thought it was prudent to just run David Johnson 12 times into the back of his center. So, yes, there is some bad play there, but also I'm not about to evaluate him when Mike McCoy and then halfway through the season, Byron Leftwich became his offensive coordinator, right? Now, fast forward to the next year, because we know what happened. Cliff comes and you bring Kyler. No brainer. Not going to knock Josh Rosen, but I make that move 100 times out of 100 times if I'm Arizona. They completely nailed that one. You get to Miami, Fitzpatrick is the starter because Brian Flores wants to institute, he wants to win, right? And I think that he feels like Fitzpatrick gives him the best chance. And who could blame him? Okay. Yes. Fitz gets hurt. The roster is limited around Josh Rosen. He's out there. Again, Flores, not an offensive coach. Again, not much around him. Again, he didn't play that well, right? Like so look, what we're embracing is the unknown. And that when you throw stats out there and you just throw them out there without context of play calling, roster, what's going on, if someone from the outside looking in looks at those numbers and says, man, they drafted him, they got rid of him the next year, the Miami took him, they got rid of him the next year, he stinks. Well, yeah, you might be right. But there's also that little part that it's like, man, coaching matters. And you got to see what this kid can do, man. I mean, there were so many people, and I don't want to base anything off of this. So many people evaluated Josh Rosen and thought so much of him. Whether they're right or they're wrong is up to that. Is up to that. But you're not a complete scrub if people didn't look at you a certain way, right? And again, coaching matters in this league. And I think Andrew nailed it. I knew what he was going for, and I'm glad he said that. If you're a quarterback, and I had heard that Josh Rosen had turned down chances to go other places, right? And think about this. Not only did he want to get his arms wrapped, he wants to be in the Kyle Shanahan thing. He turned down a roster bonus because the Bucks assuredly probably making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, he wants to resurrect his career as opposed to, take safe money and be there.
Yeah, and my thing is my answer on Josh Rosen is the same as Sam Darnold, because there is a contingent of 49er fans who are saying, hey, Sam Darnold being a option for the starting quarterback in 2021 is something you should consider. And my response is always, that is a very big question mark for this team to take, because you don't know what Darnold is. You're really you're taking a chance on his potential as opposed to who he actually is. And that's the same thing with Rosen, but the difference here is this is a 2-game trial, and at worst he's or at best he's probably the backup next year. Sam Darnold, if you sign him this offseason, you're signing him as the starter. If you bring him in, you bring him in as the starter. They're bringing in Josh Rosen as a backup right now, maybe a 1-week starter. And he's probably going to get an invite to the roster next year. And even at worst, he's probably a practice squad guy. At the very worst case, he's probably your practice squad quarterback, right? So this is a good move by the 49ers, not in terms of Josh Rosen's going to turn this franchise around sort of deal. No, that's not what this is going to be. This is going to be hey, we're going to see if, because I think the 49ers quarterback room is going to be reset next year. I don't think any 3 of these guys that have been in the quarterback room the last 2 years are going to be here next year. Josh Rosen's the first step to resetting it. Is he going to be your backup next year? Maybe. Is he going to be your third string? Maybe. I don't know. But it's the first step at restarting the quarterback room.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So Nick Mullins, it's a year to 2 years that they say about Tommy John, if that's the thing. So, I mean, he's most assuredly not going to be here. Neither is CJ. We think Jimmy's not going to be here. But, yeah. I mean, Josh Rosen, again, it's zero risk, high reward. And if you can add to the quarterback room a backup that you at least feel good about, and they don't have to play too much, then why wouldn't it be Josh Rosen, man?
Exactly. And I'm going to transition to news that just came across my Twitter timeline.
Here we go.
Benjamin Albright tweeted 11 minutes ago. I also think, based on a few conversations, that the Jets are more likely to trade out of number 2 than take a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I was just on a show with Akash, and he floated that out. As soon as the Jets went to 2, he said, "You have to think: are the Jets even going to be in on a quarterback at this point?" Yep. And that's conventional thinking, honestly, right? Like, there is again. Here's the thing with quarterbacks, right? We may think whatever we think. In this league, there's always a guy that feels like they can fix somebody, right? Yeah. No matter how bad they are. They're like, look, someone took a chance on Brock Osweiler and said, you know what, I can fix that guy. That should go to show you that people have chances. So Rosen, same thing with Darnold, right? There's a coach out there who's going to join the Jets and say, you know what, I can fix Darnold.
Jim Harbaugh.
There you go. I can fix Darnold. He's going to fix him like he fixed Alex Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's my cheap segue because we're almost done here. We didn't want to go too long. We just wanted to touch on the news of the day. Final segue with 31 seconds to go in the second quarter of the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. That's a name. Bowl
that's a mouthful.
BYU is currently beating UCF 35-7. Zach Wilson, 17 for 21, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 carries for 23 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm just going to leave that there. I guess that's how we'll leave it and end it there. Yeah. Jason, thank you for jumping on for this emergency podcast. Do you have any last second things you want to say before we hop off?
2 things today made me very happy. For a little while, I thought Jerick McKinnon might be playing football and starting for the 49ers. And for this fan base to say that they want a mobile quarterback and not want Jerick McKinnon, I call you a hypocrite. Now, the other thing that happened was the Josh Rosen thing that I've been harping on since we got Josh Johnson. So today was actually, today didn't really tell me anything that, I didn't already know. But, I mean, at least, some things went right in my, my predictions and things like that. So, I mean, today was all right, man. I'm excited to see Josh Rosen get out there. He better be out there week 17.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see at least a little taste of Josh Rosen, see what he can do in a Kyle Shanahan system with some pretty good receivers and George Kittle. So, I
love that. You're gonna leave that for going. I love.
I'll leave the George Kittle conversation for
tomorrow.
Let's just say I agree with Kyle Shanahan. So that's going to be it. As I said, we wanted to keep this short. We even went a little longer than I wanted because I only wanted to be about 15 minutes. We will be back tomorrow, normal time, 5:30. The only difference is it's going to be a long episode. We're not recording Friday. Tyler Gaffney was also signed to the practice squad, Stanford legend. That Gennaro, thank you for bringing that up. We missed that. We will be back tomorrow, 5:30. Long episode. We're not recording on Friday. We're going to do both the Cowboy review, which I have some thoughts on that game. What a wild game. That was good. That was a fun football game to watch. And then we're also going to preview the Cardinals game and get you both in one episode so you guys are set for Christmas. So that's going to be it for this quick edition of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. Thank you very much for joining. Jason, as always,
let's go Niners.